Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new here, and this is also Pro Wrestling Logic, where we discuss a variety of pro wrestling topics, over 2,400 of them at this point, and we continue to kind of go forward in that direction. This is the WCW Saturday night edition for the 23rd of February 1991. We got most of 1990 done as well. That'll be up over the next. My goal is to get through 1990 by the end of February, so we're about halfway through February, so that would be about 40 some episodes in the next couple of weeks. Who knows if I'll get there. Features an open video on this particular paying tribute to the American soldiers serving in the Middle East, including Jim Ross and Dusty Rhodes on location in the desert in Phoenix, featuring Bob Caudle, Paulie Dangerously on commentary. Included also is footage from the fans, Missy Hyatt claiming and chasing after El Gigante in the desert, as Ross and Rhodes gives a report featuring footage from the previous week, and a fan jumping into the ring to make the save for Tommy Rich against Rip Morgan, Jack Victory, and of Doug Dillinger telling Rich that he couldn't involve himself in the show, but would let him go this one time with Big Josh, as he's now known. The snapping off the handcuffs as he confronted, including Missy on location on the Ventura Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix, featuring Missy conducting an interview with Sting, working out in Phoenix regarding his team facing the Horsemen the following night at WrestleWar 91. Yes, WrestleWar here in 1991 is in February, during which he said that Steiners were out running four-wheelers in the desert when Brian Pillman would be wrestling later in the show from Atlanta, including also Ross poolside at the Point at Square Peak Resort, and Dusty tossing a beach ball to two women in the pool, featuring Missy Hyatt speaking with Sting following Pillman's injury at the hands of the Horsemen, with Sting saying that he's going to call Atlanta to find Pillman's condition, including footage of Terry Taylor interfering in the previous week's match with Tom Zink and Bobby Eaton, and Eaton knocking Taylor to the floor, featuring Ross and Rhodes speaking about the injury to Pillman, and Dustin Rhodes pinning Mark Kyle to open the show. 3:50 during the bout, it's mentioned that Rhodes would be facing Buddy Landel the following night at WrestleWar 91. I don't know that Landel was the original opponent, but he's the opponent here. Rhodes with a bunch of arm drags, basic maneuvers. Nothing necessarily worth writing home about by any stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, still a decent enough match. Rhodes with a couple drop kicks on the hinge of things as well. Obviously, Paulie Dangerously, not exactly a guy that you want to mess with in terms of, ultimate connective here. And, Rhodes trying to do the best he can to get things under control. Punch kick and a couple of bullet dogs here. Mark Kyle, of course, goes on to be Killer Kyle in the Smoky Mountain area. The interview where Big Josh breaks in through the crowd. Basically, the WCW security guy, Doug Dillinger, says that he'll allow it to go one time. Big Josh, of course, is Matt Bourne. I don't know why they brought him in this way. Seems kind of weird. He breaks free of the handcuffs and ultimately is lighting the man up in a pretty serious way. Bob Caudle and Paulie Dangerously doing the voiceovers. Paulie Dangerously kind of questioning the sanctity of the rules if a guy can just break in that manner. We go on to the next in series of things here. Missy Hyatt doing her on location. Missy Hyatt, of course, in Phoenix for the WrestleWar pay-per-view, as is virtually everybody at the time. Hyatt also kind of getting under the skin of her adversaries here. Then we go to a pretty basic maneuver. Stan Hanson up next. Stan Hanson, of course, coming out of the AWA in Japan, actually. At this point, Hanson with some big shoulder breakers and other power-related maneuvers, running kicks and the like by Hanson. Hanson, not a guy that's willing to take too much of a backward step by any stretch of the imagination. And ultimately, Stan Hansen is there. And Big Josh with Tommy Rich also pinning Joe Kazana 129. That's his in-ring debut. Kazana, not really much of a challenge for him here. We kind of see the log roll and the sit-down splash by Big Josh, and that post-match interview I talked about before. Stan Hansen out with Scott Sandlin in a pretty basic match. Submission with an armbar 146. Sandlin's grabbing the rope when the referee, Nick Patrick, calls for the bell. During the bout, Hansen cuts an insert promo on facing Big Van Vader following night at WrestleMania 91. That's a Hoss fight that actually gets taken to Japan, and Hansen's Vader's eye gets popped out there eventually. WCW World Champion Ric Flair, Sid Vicious, and Barry Windham with the WCW TV Champion Arn Anderson defeating Larry Santo, David Isley, Tommy Angel, and Scott Summers in a handicap match. 5 minutes 34 seconds when Vicious pins Summers with one hand following the powerbomb after the bout. Medics come to the ringside, take the two opponents backstage on the stretcher. Vicious drops all four with powerbombs. Moments later, the Horsemen are guests on the Danger Zone, in which they basically debut a new move on the next center stage taping on, the Horsemen comment on, it's Bobby Eaton that they've used the new move, by the way, commenting on facing Sting, Brian Pillman, and the U.S. Tag Champs Rick and Scott Steiner for the following night at War Games. Flair basically doing a basic Ric Flair promo, basically saying the Horsemen can't be stopped. The Horsemen are unstoppable. Did not realize the Horsemen went into 1991 here. I guess that's my ignorance. Sting basically says in his interview, as mentioned earlier, that the Steiners are out in the desert running over various things there, and the Horsemen's match, Barry Windham hits a big lariat. Horsemen are in control of the various things. Ric Flair pretty well going at it, and Vicious and Windham work together a little bit. Then we go to Bobby Eaton. Bobby Eaton in an enhancement match, trying to get him to be a little more, I don't know that productive is the right word, but post the breakup of the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton certainly lacking a little bit of direction. Eaton, kind of waiting for his adversary to come back in the ring. Super basic maneuver along the way here, and we get Eaton in control for the majority of the match, as is to be expected. Bobby Eaton pinning Jim Boss for the Alabama Jam. 6:35 prior to the bout, the two men shook hands during the match. It's announced that Eaton would face Brad Armstrong as part of WrestleMania 91. Also mentioned that Eaton planned to debut a move at the Tuesday tapings of the next Saturday night. Again, 6:35 is a decent match. Ultimately, Jim Boss and other enhancement talents are better off because Bobby Eaton makes them look like $1 million. Eaton certainly punching, scratching, and clawing at his adversary to get them under some semblance of control. Basic maneuvers there. And needless to say, Bobby Eaton coming back with some pretty basic hard shots. Eaton coming back and pretty consistent here. Then we go to Eaton coming back pretty consistently. And ultimately, Tom Zink managing to come up here. Zink tying up with the enhancement talent, as it were. That enhancement talent happens to be none other than, let me just take a peek here. Zink, though, having done the U.S. Tag Championships with Brian Pillman, in the next little while defeating Joe Cruz via submission. Sleeper 701, it's announced Zink would face Terrence Taylor in a no DQ match at WrestleWar. Why it's no DQ, we really don't know unless you're following the previous shows, in the sense that the announcers are doing a really poor job of getting the WCW main story is over. Zinc, though, managing a couple drop kicks under the gun and staying on the arm, kind of punch kick, real basic maneuvers along the way here, and Zinc certainly um, giving his adversary more of a match than you would imagine. However, they're trying to get 2 hours of decent stuff out, and this is back when, again, squash matches had to be stretched out a bit to get decent amounts of wrestling on television. They didn't do the 20-minute promo segments, as it were, at the time. A sleeper hold and a pile driver by, or actually not a pile driver, but the bell ringer by Tom Zink. Zink managing to get his adversary pretty quickly in the nature of things, and ultimately there are some victories there. Sid Vicious out next, or just promos for the War Games, highlights of various people in for the commercial there. Flying Brian Pillman up next. Pillman is facing off in an enhancement match against none other than, in this particular run here, Brian Pillman beating John Patterson with a crucifix. 2:45 late in the bout. The world champion Ric Flair, Barry Windham, Sid Vicious, and Arn Anderson appeared ringside after the contest. Pillman tried to fight them all off, but gets outnumbered. He's ganged up on Flair, hitting a knee drop off the top. To the back of Pillman's head. Moments later, several enhancement talents run out to run the Horseman off, and ultimately, Pillman, with the slingshot air Pillman and other basic maneuvers, getting him a victory there, and it's pretty simple along the way. WCW six-man tag team champions Ricky Morton, Tommy Rich, and the Junkyard Dog facing off also come out in the process here. Terrence Taylor with Alexander York pinning Robbie Campbell with the 5-arm 323. Prior to the bout, York grabs the microphone and said that Taylor would beat his opponent within 7 minutes and 12 seconds. She's almost cut it in half, as obviously, 3:43 is certainly within that time limit. The computer is going to tell us how long it takes for that victory to take place. I'm also going to grab my phone, so we'll be back in 2 shakes of the lamb's tail there. We'll be back right after this. And again, the Horseman level 6-man, very basic, nothing necessarily worth writing home about, but at the same time, on the heels of the Wrestle War thing, which Wrestle War, I believe, started in 89, maybe? But Flair running in and going after Pillman, a pretty aggressive thing. Obviously, they're trying to get heat on Pillman. Pillman being potentially taken out of things is the other side of that. And then we see a Bobby Eaton, they're hyping the Z-Man Bobby Eaton situation there, sending that to the back a little bit, and ultimately we move to another in the history of, as I grab my phone apparently. And again, that's the way it ended up going. I mean, ultimately, going through a Terry Taylor kind of roughing up his adversary here, which in a enhancement match in this particular jurisdiction of things, Terrence Taylor defeating Robbie Campbell, 5-arm 323 as mentioned. Then the World 6-man tag team champions Ricky Morton, Tommy Rich, and the Junkyard Dog defeating Magnum Force and Bill Ford. 10:23, Morton pinning Ford. Ford sustained JYD's power slam. Morton and Rich and JYD are not introduced in as the champions, nor did they come out with the belts, although they hadn't officially lost them yet. 10:23 in a match like that is obviously just time filling. It's frustrating because why not fill it with at least some degree of match of, I guess you'd say, moderate importance, minor importance, some sort of value, rather than just, a match for the sake of a match. But, ultimately they're going kind of around the loop of moving forward and backward with what's important. The 6-man tag team titles at this point been around more as a carryover from other territories more than at this particular juncture a meaningful championship that has long-term value. Again, kind of going forward into the, um, you know, Morton carrying the majority of the match, working over the leg of his adversary. Morton tying up, and again the junk-haired dog getting the power slam off. Morton still a babyface here, although lacking Robert Gibson, at least for the moment, and that doesn't go well. Danny Spivey up next. Spivey, who kind of done the skyscrapers thing earlier. Spivey in an enhancement match, basically looking menacing, but not really having a clear definition of what they're trying to do with him. Carl Robinson is his opponent. He takes a good backdrop bump and Spivey out on the floor with some body slams, basic maneuvers. Nothing necessarily worth writing home about. Hits the shots along the way, and a modified Bossman slam style maneuver for him. Then we go to ultimately the Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael P.S. Hayes. Those two guys are pretty focused in the nature of what they want to see, and ultimately there we go. It's pretty basic here. Then we see Michael P.S. Hayes getting after his opponent, and ultimately the Freebirds closing down. We'll be back with more right after this.